The bases dropped on a rainy Atlanta, Georgia, the site of the Eastern Conference Final in Major League Soccer. Atlanta United and Toronto play tonight. Winner will face the Seattle Sounders, and we don't know where yet. If Atlanta wins, we'll be back here on November 10th at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. If Toronto wins tonight, they'll be headed out to CenturyLink in Seattle to face the Sounders. Lots of things to get into this morning. Mike Conti and Doug Robertson will join us in hour number 2, as we often do on a match day preview edition of SDH. But we've got a lot of tweets from you guys, too. Go ahead and keep throwing them at us on Twitter, at Soccer Down Here. I want to know what you thought about last night. Did you stay up? Did you watch? How did you get the result? That type of stuff. What did you think about Seattle? What did you think about LAFC? I mean, we talked about it all week. What is LAFC's legacy? What was it before this, and what is it now? Some people would tell you that they're the best team in MLS history, no questions asked, nothing else matters. Others would say that they're nowhere near that because they didn't win MLS Cup. Honestly, it's somewhere in between. For me, I think LAFC played some of the best soccer that we've seen in this league in the history of it. I think Atlanta United has done that as well over the last couple of years. I think Toronto did that long stretches in 2017 as well, and other teams have as well. You have a lot of great teams that haven't won MLS Cup. I think it's just not possible to call a team that went 3-2-5 in their final 10, gave up 6 goals in 2 playoff knockout matches, lost in the quarterfinals of the Open Cup, and hasn't had a clean sheet since mid-August. I just don't think they can be the best team in the league's history. I think that's a disservice to teams that have won things more than just a Supporters' Shield. And that's not knocking the Supporters' Shield. It's a great accomplishment, but it's not the same accomplishment as it is in other leagues. It's not a balanced schedule. You're not getting the same schedule that everybody else plays. You're getting a draw of who you get at home and who you get away in the other conference based off the year. That's not balanced. You know, we've talked about it this season when it comes to Atlanta, the amount of travel that they have in the odd number years versus the even number years. Those things factor into winning a Supporters' Shield. So they won the Supporters' Shield. They won it with a huge margin. They played unbelievably great soccer in long stretches of the season. But they came up short in big moments, and that's going to be the biggest question for Bob Bradley and LAFC going forward is last year, their biggest win all season long was at home against Columbus. This season, probably the cover of the DVD would be beating the Galaxy, finally, in the playoffs. But is that enough? And I don't think it is. They're too good for that. And there's going to have to be some soul-searching going on in Los Angeles today because this is a group that through 86 minutes of action, only had 4 key passes. This was a game where, you know, LAFC scored first and then conceded twice before halftime and came out in the second half and really did not look like a team that was desperate. And then Seattle got a third, and it still didn't spark desperation. Carlos Vela had 6 touches inside the 18 all night long. You know, on dribbles, and LAFC led the league in winning dribbling duels by a pretty large margin. Atlanta second. 19 of 44 last night. They weren't able to win those battles. 1v1, Seattle won all over the field. In those 1v1 mano-a-mano matches, all over the pitch. Seattle won those. And you get to this time of year, you have to win those. You can have wonderful tactics. You can have a style of play that is so open and getting so many numbers forward, and you can have all of that. But if you're not winning your individual battles in the postseason, you're not going to move on. And that's what happened for LAFC last night. Seattle, great response from them after conceding on a free kick. A questionable free kick. I don't think it was as upsetting as some did. If Vela doesn't jump out of the way to avoid that tackle, he's going to get clobbered. The tackle was reckless. I'm okay with the kick there. Atuesta buried it. That's how LAFC opened the scoring. It's like, okay, they get that goal against the run of play because I thought Seattle was the better team in the first 15. And then Seattle just punches LA in the mouth multiple times, and there's just not a response. And Raul Ruidiaz, Joseph Martinez has talked about the knife between the teeth. Well, Raul Ruidiaz had that all night long, and Nico Ladero had that all night long. And when you have players with that style, with that mentality, with that ruthlessness, more often than not, you're going to find a way to win tough games. And we've seen it with Atlanta. We see it with Seattle. 3 MLS Cups in the last 4 years for the Sounders. Brian Schmetzer has done an amazing job. And just because it's not overly complicated, you can't take away from him. I'm more impressed with their defensive effort last night than I have been in a long time with the Sounders, because this is a group that didn't have Roman Torres to start due to a hamstring. This is a group that watched their leader, Chad Marshall, have to retire due to injuries earlier this season. And it's been a struggle at times defensively for Seattle. They dialed it up last night. And, you know, I mean, you can't measure if they wanted it more. But, man, it looked like it. It really looked like they were up for the fight. LAFC was not. And the result kind of leads you in that direction as well. LAFC is done for the season. They have the best season in MLS regular season history. They have a supporter shield to their name. They will be in the CONCACAF Champions League next year, but they will not be hosting MLS Cup. They are done for 2019. We'll find out tonight who's got that fight, who wins those 1v1 individual battles all over the field, because I feel like when you get Atlanta and Toronto, that's what it's going to come down to. You have stars on both sides. You have huge figures on both sides. You have guys with a lot of grit and fire on both sides. And I think the individuals who stand up the tallest tonight are probably going to lead their team to the win. Tactics are going to be important in this one. I think maybe even more important in this one than in the LA-Seattle game, because you knew who was the favorite, you knew who was the underdog, you kind of had a sense of how it was going to play out. This one, there's a lot of different questions to it. You know, Toronto is a team with a track record. They don't have to come in and sit back and just defend, but they also have that capability. They have players like Alejandro Pozuelo who can ruin your day in a heartbeat. Josie Altidore is reportedly in Atlanta, reportedly traveled last night after an MRI in Toronto yesterday. We'll find out what his availability could be. I don't think there's any way he starts. Greg Vanney has said that, but is he a second-half sub? Is he a emergency sub? Who knows? But he's a big figure that can ruin your day in a heartbeat. Michael Bradley's a guy who doesn't show up in the box score all that often unless you're looking a little bit deeper, but his passing, especially opening the field up, that can ruin your day and hit Justin Morrow, can hit Auro, can hit Marky Delgado, Jonathan Osorio when they drift out wide, can hit Tsubasa Endo, who is kind of the X factor for me when you look at Toronto. A very underrated player, a very talented player, a player who can fly under the radar a bit, and if you're not accounting for him, he can hurt you too. It's going to be a fascinating game tactically. It's going to be a fascinating game individually. It really could set up to be an all-time classic in MLS. It feels like two teams that are capable of that. And It could be a long night at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm talking length. I'm talking the amount of minutes. It could be one that you have to see a little bit of extra time to decide a winner. These two teams are that good, and they have that kind of track record. And, John, when you look at who's left, it's the 2016 champions, it's the 2017 champions, and it's the 2018 champions. And LAFC, who's gone home now, they are your most recent Supporters Shield winners. So you've got MLS royalty that made it to the semifinals of the competition this season, and we'll see who gets to the final tonight.
Yeah, going back to last night, the biggest thing that sticks in my mind is that no matter what Seattle seemed to do offensively, putting a goal in the back of the net, LAFC didn't respond. 2 goals in 4 minutes, LAFC doesn't respond. Third one goes in, and LAFC just kind of seemed to figuratively stand there and take it. Rossi, for me, was extraordinarily quiet. I can only think of one chance off the top of my head where an LAFC player was behind Seattle's defense. There may have been more, but like I said, I only have one that stands out in my head, and it was Adama Diomande in the second half. And for me, that means that you have to give high marks to Seattle's defense across the board for what they were able to do in clamping down against LAFC. You also saw the difference that Rui Diaz makes in that lineup. After the Atuesta goal, which was a thing of beauty, Ladero and Rui Diaz combine to tie it at 1. I still wonder why Atuesta doesn't make the foul in center circle when you see Rui Diaz and Jones and Ladero combine to make it 2-1. Defensively, LAFC was focused, I think it was on Jordan Morris on the far side, and how you don't account for Raul Rui Diaz with 6 dudes back defending for LAFC. It's in the back of the net by the time that possession is done, and it's at 3. I know that there are things that we'll get into later about what to look at from Seattle, but what you saw from LAFC was, in stretches, one of the best regular seasons that we've ever seen. 3-2-5 down the stretch, as you've said, and giving up 3 to the Galaxy, giving up 3 again to Seattle. They're part of a discussion, but they're not part of the discussion when it comes to greatest of all time, because you don't finish the deal. And I know that we've come up with comparisons in the past of 18-1 Patriots. I've mentioned the Mariners from 2001. You set all these records and then you get bounced. But you look at what Seattle does and you tip your hat to Brian Schmetzer and the coaching staff and to the players for the game plan that they had coming in. And they basically went into Bank of California, bossed LAFC around, and LAFC now has to look at themselves and go, why didn't we answer, or why didn't we answer in a certain way? And it ended up being a long night for the Supporters Shield winners, and the team that really absolutely outperformed the other, the one that deserved to win, is the one that moves on to MLS Cup.
One of the best regular seasons in MLS history doesn't give you the best year ever. It just can't. I mean,
nope.
There's too many other teams that have done more, and 2 of them who, one had 5 points less than LAFC did this year. The 2011 LA Galaxy, they went on to win MLS Cup. The 2017 Toronto FC squad that did a treble, including the Canadian Championship. And say what you want, it's not quite as at that time. It wasn't anyway. It wasn't as complicated and as difficult as the U.S. Open Cup. It's still a trophy. It's still a treble. Stop trying to diminish it. They put 69 points on the board, and they won MLS Cup. And they went to back-to-back MLS Cups when you include 2016 in the mix. There's a few teams that have done kind of what we're talking about, Atlanta being on the cusp of getting to MLS Cup. I mean, you have to get there first. There's not many teams that have done what Atlanta's done over the last 2 years, even before tonight starts. With 3 trophies, Campeones Cup, call it what you will, it's a trophy. The beginning of the league, DC United, from 96 to 99, they won 2 trophies a year. Now, you're talking about a 10-team league. Supporter Shield is a little bit different with a 10-team league. But 96, they won MLS Cup. They won the Open Cup. 97, they won MLS Cup. They won the Supporter Shield. 98, they won the CONCACAF Champions Cup and the Inter-American Cup over Vasco da Gama. 99, they won the MLS Cup and the Supporter Shield. So you take any 2-year run out of that 4, and you've got 4 trophies in the bag. You've got a couple others. You've got doubles that happened, in the league. You've got the 1 treble with Toronto. You've got some doubles. Kansas City 2000, MLS Cup Supporter Shield. LA Galaxy, as we mentioned, MLS Cup Supporter Shield. Chicago 98, MLS Cup US Open Cup. 2002 Galaxy, MLS Cup Supporter Shield. And they won an Open Cup in 2001. So you're talking about 3 trophies there in a 2-year period. The Crew did MLS Cup Supporter Shield double in 2008. Dallas did the Supporter Shield US Open Cup double in 2016. Kansas City did the Open Cup in 12 and the MLS Cup in 13. But right now, you've only got Toronto in 2017 that did the treble in 1 year. And I'll have to go back and look, but I'm 2018 they had Canadian Championship. In 2016, I think they did as well. So 4 trophies in a 2-year span. DC, 4 trophies in a 2-year span at the beginning. Pick whichever 2-year span you want from 96 to 99. Atlanta has matched what the Galaxy did in 2001, 2002 with 3 trophies in 2 years. But that's a different conversation. I mean, if you want to talk about a 2-year span, okay, we've got some comparisons here. If you want to talk about a single season, okay, you can talk Supporter Shield winners. You can talk teams that won the Supporter Shield with a high number and also won MLS Cup. I was just surprised, as good as LAFC has been, how poor they finished. And for a team that they knew what the league format was when they signed up. It's not like you can come back and say, well, we were really good, but no, you knew. You knew in MLS, the parades are for MLS Cup. The games on national TV. It is what all of the hype about the postseason leads to. It's MLS Cup. It's not a balanced schedule, so it's not the same conversation that it is in other countries. You just can't bring that into it in the same way. LAFC did not finish the drill. And they're going to have to answer some questions about if they can. Because now it's at home 1-2 in knockout round games. 1-2 and a boatload of goals that you've conceded in these moments. That's an issue. That's a huge, huge issue for LAFC. As good as they have been, they might need something else next year. And we will see what happens with LAFC. There's lots to talk about from last night. There's lots to talk about from tonight. Send us your tweets at Soccer Down Here. Let us know what you thought about the match last night, what Brian Schmetzer had to say afterwards, anything that Bob Bradley had to say afterwards, and what you're looking for tonight as Toronto comes into the bins to try to ruin what's been a great year for Atlanta United. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, October 30th. One day before Halloween, and hopefully there are no tricks at the bins tonight. Atlanta United, Toronto, Eastern Conference final. Kickoff will be just after 8 o'clock. Boy, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a stressful day, but big opportunity for Atlanta United in front of them now with Seattle beating LAFC. If Atlanta wins, we're all heading back to the bins on November 10th for MLS Cup for the second time in a row. What were the peeps saying about last night, and what are the peeps saying this morning?
Eric Hunter, who decided to reach out a little after 3 o'clock this morning. So much credit to Seattle, and as a 17, I hoped for the chance at another home final, but LAFC showed far more aggression toward the ref than even their opponent. If that's our five stripes struggling like that, I got to believe we'd go down kicking and screaming. Surely our Atlanta United and most teams could adjust to the officiating and play the game as it's being played and officiated, right? I was honestly shocked.
Yeah, I don't understand why it was a surprise. I mean, if you follow this league and you know anything about like how these games go, Jair Marufo, he's consistent. He's not going to call a lot of fouls. I mean, he never does. I don't know. Maybe we're crazy for digging into this stuff as deeply as we do, but I feel like we have this conversation a good bit when it comes to Marufo on a match. He's consistent in that he doesn't blow the whistle a whole lot. You look at the numbers. I mean, I'm pulling them up right now. Referees who worked over 20 games. Marufo worked 20. He's kind of busy this summer as well. Like he's an in-demand referee. He's a FIFA-level referee. Out of referees who worked more than 20 games, Marufo called the fourth fewest fouls per game. Just over 21 fouls per game. Fouls per tackle. You know, he doesn't call a ton. He wants to let the game play out. He's fourth in that. Penalties per game. Now, he's not afraid to call a penalty. He was the most penalties per match of referees who worked more than 20 games. So all the conversation about he doesn't want to call a penalty, well, that's not true if you follow his track record. Yellow cards per game, fewest. Fewest out of anybody who's worked more than 3 games. Fewest in the league. 2 red cards in 20. He wants to let the players decide the game. He doesn't want to be the focal point of the match. You knew that coming in if you did your homework. And I just get consistently surprised when conversation around these games is like, oh, well, we didn't know it would be like that. Yes, you should have. Absolutely. This is what
How do you not have that info?
Bob Bradley hadn't said anything like that, so let's not put anything on LAFC. But you have to know that's how this game is going to go. You have to know that. You have to be prepared because that is how Marufo calls the game. It is what he does. So let's take that context and talk about what we could see tonight. Alan Kelly, out of referees who worked more than 20 games. And first off, how many referees worked more than 20? Not a ton, because you had a lot of guys who were in the teens. Like Kevin Stott worked 18. Dave Gantar worked 16. Fotis Bazakos worked 12. Remy Touchane worked 19. So Alan Kelly worked 21. Marufo worked 20 with last night. Out of everybody, let's just say double digits here, because you had a couple guys who worked like 1, 2, or 3 games. Out of guys who worked into double digits in games, Kelly was 9th out of 21 referees in terms of fouls per game. So kind of right in the middle. He calls, on average, just under 23 fouls per game, and you compare that to Marufo, who's just over 21. So a couple more fouls Kelly's going to call. Penalties per game, Kelly is 8th overall, but 6th out of guys who worked double digits. He calls fewer penalties than Marufo. Yellow cards, he calls about the same amount as Marufo, 3.1 per game versus 2.85. So he doesn't like to throw cards around, and red cards even less. He's only thrown 1 this season out of 21 matches. It's going to be a similar kind of game. Kelly and Marufo are referees who have worked at the highest levels. They're referees who have a thick skin. They're referees who are not going to want to be the headline after the match. So expect a similar kind of game tonight. Alan Kelly's going to let the game breathe. He's going to let the players sort it out. And he's not going to call it by the book to show that he's smarter than other people. He's going to call the game that transpires tonight. That might be different than the next game he calls. It might be different than the previous game he called. But he's going to call it in a similar way because that's what good refs are. That's what good refs do. So we'll see if we get that same type of performance tonight. But yeah, I don't understand all the reactions to Marufo and the way he called it. I think you had to know. Now, the questions about the penalties and about decisions individually, sure, you can get into them. There was one that I was surprised didn't go to an on-field review. The one that it looked like Diamande was flicking it back to himself to turn and shoot, and the arm was out from, I believe it was Arriaga, and it hit his arm, and it wasn't called. The one with Keehee where he's turning, his arm is out, but he is turning, that's one that's tricky because under the new rule that is not in effect in Major League Soccer right now, I think that gets called because his arm is outside of his silhouette and intent doesn't matter anymore. But intent matters now under the rules that MLS is playing under the previous laws of the game. And there was no intent on the Keehee one. The other one, the one that I thought might get an on-field review, I couldn't judge the intent. They only showed one replay quickly. The arm was away from the body. It was a short distance from the ball, the foot where it touched the ball to the arm, and that's very difficult. But I thought it absolutely had an impact on a sequence for LAFC. So that was probably the biggest surprise for me. The stuff that kept coming up in the broadcast about the shoulder-to-shoulder and going in hard on Vela and this and that, I mean, no, I didn't have a problem with any of that. That stuff was consistent. You know, that's a different conversation than the judgment on a handball. They're not the same thing. Referees don't think about them the same way. The first shoulder-to-shoulder to Vela, I thought it was shoulder-to-shoulder. I thought the defender did everything you're supposed to do in that moment. Vela, honestly, I thought kind of shied away from the contact, and that's why when the shoulder was intended for Vela's shoulder, and I thought Vela kind of tried to get out of the way, and it got him a little bit in front. I don't have a problem with that. The one inside the box was even more shoulder-to-shoulder to me, and Vela initiated the contact as much as the defender did. And then Vela could have gotten a yellow for, I thought, a cheap shot when he went, it looked like, over the ball and decked a player who had cleared it. So the complaints about officiating, I don't think they had any impact on the match whatsoever. The only one was that one handball that I thought could have been reviewed, and if Marufo, because he couldn't have seen it. He's behind it. It's up against the end line. He maybe couldn't even see the hand touching the ball, but he definitely would have had a problem with the intent. And we only saw one replay on the broadcast. We didn't see a bunch of other replays. So that's one that I thought could have gone to an on-field review to make sure he had it right.
ATL UTD fan number 1, who also got up early this morning. Real simple from all the narratives and talk about LAFC is the best team ever to if Atlanta United wins a treble and repeats as MLS Cup champions. The talk changes to Atlanta United being the best ever in a 2-year period. For me, hashtag no cup, no star. It's not the best team ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's the simple stuff, right? You know, you get into this about what's more important, blah, 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 blah. Well, the league puts the star on the jersey that wins MLS Cup. The league pushes the playoff format, the playoff idea, how important they are. Don't then come back and tell me that they're not as important as Supporter Shield. You can't do both because, and this was the point that I thought was obvious earlier this week, but maybe it wasn't clear enough. This is not the conversation that happened last year. And last year you had a team in the New York Red Bulls that set a mark for points in a season, broke the previous one from Toronto, but nobody was saying that they were the best team in MLS history. Now, they played a very different style, and they were not from, you know, the aesthetics of it. No, they did not play. Depends on how you want to put it. I would agree with this because of the way that I enjoy the game. They didn't play as good of soccer as LAFC did at times this season. LAFC played some amazing, beautiful soccer this season, and I'm always going to lean more towards a team that plays that way than a team like the Red Bulls that is destructive and presses you to death and just suffocates you. But the fact is, last season, the Red Bulls set the mark for points in a season, and nobody was talking about them in this way. So if you want to talk about the way that the team plays, and that's what makes them the best ever, cool, fine. There's teams that are going to be in that conversation that won MLS Cup and teams that didn't win MLS Cup. That's a different conversation. But the thing about Supporter Shield, that conversation did not happen last year. I didn't hear anybody defend the Red Bulls in the way that people have defended LAFC in this postseason and preemptively defended them before they lost. That didn't make much sense to me. So if you're going to have it about style, okay, cool, have it about style. But that wasn't the conversation that was happening. If Atlanta does a treble this year, I mean, even, as we said at the top, even if they lose tonight, you're talking about 3 trophies over a 2-year span, and there's very few teams that can have that conversation. Toronto can, LA Galaxy can from 2001 and 2002, and DC can from the first 4 years of the league. That's it. That's all. That's the only teams that can have that conversation. So you're already in a special place. You add a 4th to that, and back-to-back MLS Cups, it's going to be hard to argue with, but none of that's a guarantee tonight.
Nathan Pugh hopes that you have Dramamine because he wonders where the goalposts are today. Tonight will be a tense match, but Atlanta will have the steel to do it. Hashtag Wall Pass Wednesday and hashtag Overreaction Wednesday.
Yeah, I watched some of the post-game stuff last night, and you could already see things moving around. You could already see some shifting and some conversations. So whatever, it is what it is. I wish that wasn't the talking point in the league. I don't think it does I don't think it shows proper respect to the accomplishments in this league, that there are other things that come up. I mean, yeah, we haven't talked about it yet, but you know, Schmetzer in his post-game commentary called out Bobby Warshaw. And he called him out specifically for the article that he wrote on MLSsoccer.com. And then in the post-game show, you know, that was kind of celebrated that their guy got called out. But here's the problem with that. Yes, in Warshaw's piece that he wrote previewing the game, the tactics, of course, he got them right. I think anybody could see that's how Seattle was going to play, and that was how Seattle would have success. Of course, that's kind of an obvious one. But it was the way and the lack of respect that it was put that set Schmetzer off. I mean, when the headline is Seattle Sounders' only hope against LAFC is if they're scared. Okay. That's That's trying to poke, right? That's
Yeah.
making it very clear that you're not just breaking something down here. You're trying to diminish a team. And no, their only hope wasn't if they were scared. Their only hope was that they weren't scared. That's the whole idea here. You can be defensive. You can drop 2 lines of 4, which I thought they did it a little bit too early, but they had just enough of the threat of a break, and they got the 3rd goal on one of those. But you had just enough to keep them honest. But yeah, you can sit back. You can defend. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're scared. That means you're smart. And it's probably this paragraph that really set Schmetzer off. LAFC are miles better than the Sounders. That might be a gut punch to Sounders fans. It doesn't mean you're bad, ! It simply means the team you're playing just put up the best points total in league history, ! The first step to the Sounders winning is accepting that fact. Not really. No. You have to know that you can play with a team. Now, the tactical points that Warshaw makes, yes, they weren't that hard to see, but yes, they're absolutely correct. You need to get at LAFC early, and Seattle did that. They controlled the first 15 minutes. They gave up a goal against the run of play, but they didn't drop at all when they gave up that goal. That pushed them in a lot of ways. You have to defend like animals. Yes, you have to do that. And you have to try to make sure that LAFC doesn't find a rhythm. Yes, those are all good points. You don't have to do it in a way that turns the spotlight on you by saying something this strong. And going at Brian Schmetzer, who said, we're not afraid of them, talking about LAFC. And basically, Warshaw said you should be. Well, Schmetzer popped off at him, and he's not the first coach to pop off at the MLS digital side. I think they put out a ton of content. I think they put out a lot of great content, but I don't like that the story becomes about them far too often, and I don't like that they celebrate that. I don't think that's the right approach, and I understand that the situation is different here than it is for MLB TV or NBA TV or the NFL Network, because you have a robust national sports media that is covering those leagues in depth. So the league media is a kind of a different place. But we were talking about it before we got started. The NHL Network is in a very similar type of situation. They have a network instead of putting it all over digital, but same idea. They really drive a lot of the national conversation for NHL fans. And I think the attitude and the way that they present information is very different. And I think it's the right one. I think it's more productive, because this is not good when in these moments teams are angry at the league's media arm. It's not a good situation. It's not where you want it to be, and it's not the first time. I really hope that the idea of angering people to get mentions and clicks, I hope that can go away, because you have smart people there. You have people who make really good points, but they get diminished by all of the nonsense too often. And I really hope they can turn that around, because it's needed. John, you follow hockey a lot more closely than I do. I think the NHL Network has done a great thing for the NHL and for hockey fans. And I hope that MLS can have the same thing.
Yeah, where the NHL Network is concerned, you have hosts and you have individuals who either played or were in front offices, and it's a respectful viewpoint. And you get into tactics, and there is no shining of the spotlight on themselves to make a point. It's matter of fact. It's presented for the sake of information, and you're not angering coaches who aren't angry anyway. John Tortorella is an example. He's a guy who's always going to be testy in a press conference, especially as the season goes along. You're not there poking the bear consistently at the NHL Network just so people can sit there and say, well, last night on the NHL Network, insert host here said this. And that host isn't making a big deal about it nationally, about, hey, look what I did. I would like to see MLS Digital sit there and continue to put out the content that they do. Let everyone know what's going on in the game. Make sure that sides are presented when it comes to information. You sit there and say, okay, break things down. Here's your tactics. Here's your information. And not so much focus on themselves to sit there and say, hey, look at us. And that way you're driving clicks and you're driving folks to watch what you're doing. I've always been a person myself to sit there and try to make sure that facts are driving a conversation. Yes, I have opinions, but at the same time, if I'm telling a story or if I'm doing an interview, I want to make sure that there's a proper amount of respect that's given to the situation. And I'd like to see MLS Digital not anger or bite the hand that's feeding them as much as they seem to.
It's all about the presentation. I think it can be better, and I think it will do the league better. It's not about clicks. It's not just about clicks. And I think it's very easy to get clicks by being edgy. And I think a lot of people, throw the embrace debate thing around with ESPN strategy, but ESPN, when they talk college football or NFL or NBA or whatever, you have both. You have Stephen A. Smith yelling. Well, one, Stephen A. Smith makes some really good points as well in the midst of his yelling and around his yelling. But two, you also have other shows that don't have him yelling on them. Same with any sport. That it's not just that content. And for me, the most important content is the informational content, is the analysis content, not the commentary point. And I think it's shifted a little bit too much in that regard, but we'll see. I hope that doesn't become the storyline of everything, but we'll have to wait and find out. What else do we have on Twitter? Let's keep going.
Plenty. Eric Schwartz, no matter how tonight goes, Atlanta United has more trophies in 2019 than LAFC. Hashtag Wallpass Wednesday.
Yeah, and it's not about one or the other. It's not about a comparison. It's about winning the big trophy, and the big trophy is MLS Cup. I mean, it is. If you played a balanced schedule, then it's a different conversation. Then it's a completely different conversation. But I don't think you have these types of conversations in Mexico, where you had a playoff format for a long time, because they don't play a balanced schedule in each section of the season. The Aperture and the Clausura, it's not balanced. You're playing every team once. So you could have an easier away schedule in one season and a harder one the next season, and your expectations are different. I don't think they even care about who had the best regular season in this. It's all about winning the postseason. And in MLS, that's been the story from day one. So I don't know why all of a sudden now that it's let's change the narrative. They had a great year. LAFC had a great year, and again, they played some of the best soccer in this league, for my taste, that I've seen in its 24 seasons. But they weren't good enough in the moments, and they weren't good enough last night.
Michael Head says, wow, did Vegas get it wrong on the lines from yesterday? Seattle and Los Angeles. Good for us. Come on, you Stripes.
Yeah, I mean, everybody had it. So, I mean, Vegas, the experts, everybody. I picked Seattle. I picked them in extra time, but I picked Seattle. I thought it'd be even more difficult than it was. I expected more from LAFC. They were the better team. I mean, LAFC over the whole of the season was the better team. I think they were the better 11. I don't think they were good enough on the night. And I think Seattle players, their top players, played as good as possibly can, and everyone else lifted their game to try to match that. And LAFC, it just didn't feel like there was any elevation of their game.
Katie Weaver wants to know if we think that the LA-Seattle result would have been different over two legs. So far, the playoff format's been a win for intense, exciting games. Are we stuck with it?
Yeah, we're going to be stuck with it for a while. I think everybody's very excited about it. But, yeah, I think it would have been different. I think NYC and Toronto could have been different over two legs. Generally, over two legs, the better team goes through. And in both situations, to me, the better team went out over the single leg. Now, they had it at home, and they should have taken advantage. But in a one-game format, these things can happen. Over 180 minutes, more often than not, the better team goes through. So it just depends on what you want. I mean, the atmosphere, the drama, the excitement of the postseason has been great, and that's a great thing for the league. And if this is the best way to do it, then this is the format you got to play through. And it's very, very difficult, and it's very, very stressful, but it is a great test of a team's mentality. It's a huge test of a team's mentality, and Seattle had a better one last night.
Jorge B., according to Taylor Twellman, Atlanta United had a down year, and we all know he's considering Seattle the immediate favorites for MLS Cup since his beloved LAFC got knocked out. I don't understand how a team that won 2 major trophies and still is in the playoffs have a down year.
Yeah, the down year thing I disagreed with. Because, one, you're talking about 3 years. So it's a little hard to compare. Like, oh, well, which one was the down year of the 3? I'd probably go with the one that didn't have any trophies in it, the first one. I'd also look back at the differences between the 2 seasons, and it's not that different. Yes, there was a points difference of, 11, if I'm not mistaken? I think it was 11 points difference from 2018 to 2019. Okay, that was made up by winning 5 Open Cup games and winning the trophy and winning a Campeones Cup game and also playing 4 games in CONCACAF and then also going into Game 3 in MLS. I mean, you're going to end up, if you get through tonight and if you get to MLS Cup, you are going to go through as many matches as any team in MLS history has. I believe, without going back to the earlier years of the league, I don't think there's anybody who got to that point. I believe 48 matches for the Sounders in 2012 is the mark for the number of games in a year. And the main reason they got it, they didn't get to the MLS Cup final that year. The main reason they got that was the way CONCACAF was formatted. Because I think they actually kind of double dipped on the way the format was going. You had early in the season, you had knockout round games from the previous year's CONCACAF. It used to go over like a fall to spring format. You had a group stage in the fall and knockouts in the spring. So they got the knockout round games early in 2012 and then group stage games in late 2012 for qualifying again. So I think they played 10 games in CONCACAF in that calendar year. That's what pushed them to that number. It's what Atlanta's doing is I think they've made up for the points that they did not get in the regular season. I think they've made up for that. So I think it's hard to say they've had a down year. I mean, compared to what? Last year, I guess, you didn't win as many games in the regular season, but you're on the cusp of getting back to the final, and you got 2 other trophies along the way. I don't know how anybody can call that a down year.
Yeah. Michael Head also doesn't see MLS moving off the format. I'm sure it cannot be done due to the international breaks, but having the conference finals on the weekend would make the whole playoffs look, quote, end quote, bigger.
I disagree with that. That's been a big point that a lot of people have made. I don't know if it does, because then the argument was with TV ratings not being great. Well, it's competing with college football. It's competing with the NFL. So on the weekend, it gets lost. I don't know if there's a right answer here. I think historically when they've done this, and we'll have to go back and see if we can dig up some numbers, the ratings and the attendance has not been different for midweek versus weekend. I think actually the ratings have been better midweek for TV. I mean, the El Tráfico number was massive for ESPN. I didn't understand, and maybe this is coming from other sports, but I didn't understand all the defensiveness about overhyping the El Tráfico game that ESPN kept talking about all day yesterday. I didn't think they did. Maybe it was other sports fans who were saying that they were overhyping it because they didn't care. And if that's the case, that's fine. I thought that was weird. But the ratings, I think, are better for the midweeks. I don't think being on the weekend makes it feel bigger. And you can with the schedule because Mexico does it. You can do a 2-legged playoff format, including the final over 2 legs, between the two international windows. It can be done. It means you're going to play a midweek first leg and a weekend second leg, but it can be done. It's going to cram, a lot of games in a short period of time. They're also not having 14 teams in the postseason. They're having 8. So if you go back to what you did previously with a knockout round for wild cards and then 2 legs once you get down to 8, it can be done. But I think they're happy with the format they have now.
Joe Boss didn't see the last half, but he thought that Bob Bradley made a tactical error by not becoming a little more defensive. Or does LAFC just not have that flexibility? Or was it more go to the dance with what brung you mentality? He says he'll hang up and listen.
Last one. Bob and LAFC, they are who they are, and they're not going to change. I think some of that is down to wanting to prove that you can play that way and win. I think it's too open. Getting more defensive, I don't know if that's exactly it, but they had to vary it up a little bit more. It's just because what they were trying to do wasn't working. So if you've got to play a little more possession in your own half to draw Seattle out, if you've got to mix in some long ball to let Seattle win the ball and launch an attack and then try to turn them over, yes, I thought LAFC, their best moments are kind of the same moments that they've had all season defensively, where they're able to condense the field, overload it, cause a turnover, and then spray it immediately to the opposite side and create a 1v1. I mean, that's how Carlos Vela's had the year he's had. They weren't able to do that enough here. So if you're not able to do that because the other team is giving you the ball more, you're not having success in doing what you want to do with the ball because the other team's defending you. You got to find another way. And maybe it would have been to get a little more direct and look to play over the top, and then using that as the fishing lure. Cast out the line, get Seattle to bite, get Seattle to try to play a little bit with the ball, and then turn them over and do what you do. It didn't happen enough. I think LAFC could have went to that a little bit more.
Daniel Price is already starting the supporters section chants and having everyone else engage as well. So, Daniel, pace yourselves. Don't lose your voice for tonight. Vine City FC wants to know how far in advance he can reserve a table and champagne service at Magic City.
I do not know, but don't take anything for granted. Don't take anything for granted, folks. This is, the same things we've talked about with Seattle. Toronto can do all of those things because they have. I mean, you're talking about a team in 2017 that won everything in front of them. You're talking about a team that went to the final of CONCACAF Champions League in 2018 and took the penalties. You're talking about a group with a lot of veterans, with a lot of self-belief. They are not going to come into Mercedes-Benz Stadium and be afraid. It's not going to happen. They do not need to come in scared, as some people might try to tell them to be. That's not how they're going to play. Are they going to come in and be defensive? They can. Are they going to come in and sit back and look to play on the counter? Yep, they could. They absolutely could. That doesn't mean they're going to be afraid. I think Toronto is as difficult of a test as you could find in this game. I think they're a more difficult test than New York City if it was at the Benz. New York City would have been able to host because of the regular season. That's a different conversation entirely. But at the Benz, I think Toronto might be more of a difficult challenge because they're just not afraid. And they're not going to get overwhelmed by the moment, or they're not going to get overwhelmed when the crowd gets going. The crowd needs to keep going and keep making noise and keep being into this because they can affect their own team. But Toronto's not going to be afraid of that. So it's not going to be easy. Don't be booking any champagne rooms just yet.
Nando Sainz says it's going to be a 2-0 victory tonight. Seattle will come in physically and emotionally spent after their epic win over LAFC, and Atlanta United claims the cup for the second year in a row. So Nando's very optimistic.
Very early for all of that. Very, very early. And Seattle had plenty of time to recover. And you saw them last night. They're not going to come in spent about anything.
We've already talked a lot about what Sean Vergara has, but Sean's also said he loves how Bob Bradley just looks like someone stole his Reese's from his Halloween candy.
Probably felt that way. That's how I would have felt last night. That's exactly how I would have felt last night, because he didn't get the response to his team that they should have gotten. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just the personalities of the individuals. I don't know if they just got scared, got overwhelmed. I don't know. And I don't know if there was an easy option to change it. You know, you weren't able to start Adama Diomande, and you brought him in. It didn't really have an impact. Vela was not as impactful as he typically is at all. I mean, not even close. Rossi is a secondary piece. He didn't step up when you weren't getting it from others last night. Brian Rodriguez didn't make a whole lot happen early in the match. You just didn't have a lot of game changers changing anything last night. And for Seattle, you did. You know, Ladero and Rui Diaz were lethal when they needed to be. And then you got grinded out performances. I think Gustav Svensson was really good last night in a very defensive role. Bob probably felt like somebody came into his house and went through his Halloween candy and took the Reese's peanut butter cups, because I'd be upset about that too. I'd probably have a sour look on my face, but I don't know what else he could have done. I mean, it feels like, looking at it from the outside, it feels like there's just something about the mentality of LAFC that they struggle when it gets hard. And this was something that people said about Atlanta United last season, but I never got that same feeling that you do when you watch LAFC, that they're just not up for it at times. It's weird. It's very, very weird. So we'll see. Maybe they need a destroyer 6 and let Atuesta be a different kind of player. Maybe they need somebody who would make that defensive play and kick Raul Rui Diaz 5 feet into the air in that moment in the match.
Yep.
Maybe they need that. Maybe not having it is part of the personality issue with the team. I don't know. But there's going to have to be questions about LAFC, because it's been great, but they've got one supporter shield to show for it. And you go into CONCACAF, you're not going to be the team that's running away from everybody like you have at times in the regular season. You're going to have to fight and scratch and claw, and I don't know if that's how they want to be. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what they do in the offseason and what they do to change that group. Let's take a break. Let's get Mike Conti on the line right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here. The morning of the Eastern Conference Final. It's raining in Atlanta again. Usually this is a good thing for Atlanta United. For some crazy reason, usually when it rains, things go well for the Five Stripes. I have no idea why this is.
I was going to say, do we have a stat? Can we talk to Johannes about a rain stat?
That might be a little bit out of his purview, but maybe we can get into this. Mike, you have all the stats. Do you have a stat for when it rains, how Atlanta United does?
So, because I often find myself with lots of time on my hands and want to come up with some tweets that people will pay attention to, I actually attempted to look that up.
Wow.
I attempted to look that up because in some cases, the official MLS match report will put the weather outside the stadium in the report. Like, it'll give you an attendance, and it'll say the weather was 48 degrees and raining.
Yeah,
It's
that was
kinda
something
weird
we had to do with Opta. That was something
Right.
that you had on just that basic match report side of things.
Exactly. But not all the match reports have it. So I tried. The matches I could find, it was pretty good. But it's an incomplete sample size, so I didn't want to go with it. I mean, obviously, everyone remembers what the weather was on December the 8th of last year, and it was probably one of the most miserable days of the year in terms of weather last year. But, I do remember moments where Atlanta United has lost home games on rainy days too. So let's not assume that anything's in the stars tonight, not yet at least, just because of the weather forecast.
Yeah, you can't assume anything at this point, especially after last night. And I think this is going to change the conversation a little bit coming into this one. Is everybody picked LAFC last night. Everybody gave Seattle no chance, and Seattle went into LAFC's house and ate their cookies and drank their milk.
First of all, I'm glad I'm not the only person that's going to take some heat for calling out Bobby Warshaw, because I guess Brian Schmetzer laid into him after the match last night.
That's pretty good.
A little bit.
Thank you, Coach Schmetzer, for getting me off the hook. I hate your negative tactics and I hate the way your team plays, but thank you for at least doing that. Yeah, look, I'm almost too nervous to even get into this conversation, because if Atlanta United doesn't win tonight, then we don't really have a leg to stand on. But I will take trophies over Supporter Shield any day. I've said that throughout. I think it was funny to see some of the LA Galaxy fans kind of turn on that narrative in the midst of this season for an obvious reason. But a lot of Galaxy fans who really like to hang their hats on being the best team ever because of Supporter Shields, now they've completely turned around and said, well, it all has to do with winning the MLS Cup. And we know why they feel that way. But I'm almost too superstitious to even go there. I will say this. First of all, fair play to Seattle. Great match last night. Well played. I fell asleep at halftime, but I could tell you, I did the Hawks game last night. When I was driving home from the Hawks game, I was listening to Dave Denholm on Sirius XM. He's the LAFC announcer. And I could tell, and it was 1-0 when I put it on LAFC. I could tell the way he was calling the match, and he's the LAFC announcer, that he knew this was not going to be a good night. And when Seattle got the second goal before halftime, you knew that would give them the key to approach the second half in a much easier, much less complicated way. It made the game plan a lot more straightforward. Raul Ruidiaz, I think, is one of the most criminally underrated players in this league. Yeah. And I know he came in midseason last year, so he was left out of Best 11 and All-Star because of that. I know he's had some injuries this year, and that probably cost him some Best 11 and All-Star consideration. I think Raul Ruidiaz is nails And you saw that again last night. Rui Diaz scored the Atlanta United opponent goal of the year so far back in July when we were up there when he sombreroed Miles Robinson. Just an unbelievable goal. And he proved last night his quality. If Atlanta United moves on to play Seattle, I know this sounds crazy. I actually would have rather played LAFC. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy, and I know it means he would have had a road game as opposed to a home game. I think LAFC's vulnerabilities were on display in the Trafico. I think they were last week. I think they were certainly on display last night. And their staff has a lot to think about this offseason, about how they want to proceed going forward, because they have vulnerabilities that need to be addressed. But the Benz is a fortress this year. And the fact now that we could have a home MLS Cup final, this is the way I feel. I don't think the players feel this way, but this is the way I feel. It ratchets up the pressure for me, for Atlanta United, just exponentially tonight. Exponentially. Because now you've got that carrot in front of you, that golden carrot, that opportunity to host the MLS Cup final next Sunday. And it's taken, to win a championship, you need to get some significant breaks along the way. And Atlanta United, the soccer guys, were really frowning on them the first couple months of the season. But, boy, have they come good in a big way. But, man, oh, man, is this going to be a tough match tonight. I think the toughest playoff game Atlanta United has ever played in its 3-year history, because you don't have the advantage that you've had against so many of your opponents of that big match experience and a group of people where you've won championships and the other guys haven't. You don't have that advantage tonight. I'm scared out of my mind. I'm a nervous wreck for this game because now of what could be coming next weekend. I'm a nervous wreck for this game tonight.
Jason Andrews, Mike, on Twitter this morning, and we have some folks who are asking questions, so I'm going to kind of combine that into the discussion this go-around. Jason Andrews says Atlanta United is yet to beat Toronto in big moments like 17 and 18 decision days. How does the team overcome any...
But I don't agree with that, by the way, because it was a big moment when they beat them in May of this year. Atlanta United was a very wobbly club at that point, starting to find their sea legs. They had that really good performance in Kansas City, and then Barco left. Toronto was playing very well at that point. That was a clutch nails 2-0 victory that they came up with in May. I would not demean the quality of that win at all. Not ignoring the rest of the question, please continue. But I do need to interject that. I think that's very unfair to Atlanta United to say they haven't beaten Toronto in a big match, because they have.
So, of course, now in my brain, I've got Schoolhouse Rock going over interjections. But how does the team overcome any mental hurdles that come with past experiences and finally best Toronto when it matters?
That doesn't feel like a problem for this team, does it? And I think they kind of proved that last year in the Eastern Conference Final against Red Bulls, right? They've never beaten Red Bulls at all, let alone in a big match. And they go out and they throw the hammer down at home in a 3-0 win in the first leg, and the series is pretty much over at that point. I don't feel like this team has ever had challenges overcoming mental hurdles or mental blocks. If anything, I think sometimes it galvanizes them. And boy, I'll tell you what, and we had this debate last October when Atlanta United blew the Shield up in Toronto, where there were some fans telling us they would never, ever forget that day, never, ever forget that performance. It's going to be a permanent scar on Atlanta United. Do you think anyone's going to be thinking about that game if you beat Toronto in a one-off Eastern Conference final tonight? Absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. So I don't worry about that at all. I think this team is extremely mentally tough. And honestly, I think the experiences that they've gone through this year, what they had to do against Club America, what they had to do in the U.S. Open Cup, what they had to endure with the injuries and all the other chaos at the beginning of the season, and having to go through that in hostile environments in Costa Rica and Mexico. Jason, I got to tip my cap to Jason, because he said it a number of times when things were tough in the early part of the season, that going through those experiences were going to help Atlanta United win matches later in the year. And now here we are, and they're doing it. I don't worry about Atlanta United having any kind of mental block against Toronto tonight. And I think what they did in May against them is critical. And I would not demean that match at all or the quality of that result, because Toronto was playing very well and Atlanta United, I think, they only had 2 wins in the league year by the time that match came around. I might be misremembering. It was certainly low single digits.
It was
that was a clutch performance that night for Atlanta United, and it really catapulted them into where they are right now.
Yeah, that was part of the early run where they had beaten Colorado, they had won in Kansas City. They had 3, and then they beat Toronto. But that was where I think the defensive run really got going for this group, and that was where they got so strong on the defensive side. And then after the Seattle match, after the injury to Brek Shea, after the suspension to Franco Escobar, and you go to the 3-5-2, you add that element back into the group, back into the mix, and now you have a team in the postseason that you feel like can defend and throw up a clean sheet, and you feel like you have a lot of faith in that. But you also have the belief that this team can get goals, and that's where you want to be. It is not a one-dimensional team. I think Toronto's the same way. I don't think they're a one-dimensional group either. I think Seattle is not a one-dimensional group, although they might lean a little more defensive at times, mainly because I think they've lost a lot on the defense, and they have to. LAFC felt a little more one-dimensional, and I think it showed last night.
All the one-dimensional teams that were in the playoff are now out. New England, I felt, was a little bit one-dimensional. They're out.
Yep.
Red Bulls, certainly one-dimensional. They're out. LAFC, totally agree. Completely one-dimensional. Out. Galaxy, not just one-dimensional, one player. Out. So, yeah, it is the teams that can excel both in the attack and defending that are still left, and Toronto is one of those teams. They've got the big match experience, which is what scares me so much. I agree. I mean, if this match gets a little off the rails and Atlanta United has to go out and find 2 goals in the second half, I have full faith and confidence they can go out and do it. I also have full faith and confidence that Atlanta United can go out and throw up another clean sheet tonight. Their playoff history says so. 8 playoff matches all time, 6 clean sheets. The way that you can guarantee that you're not going to lose a match is if you don't allow a single goal to go in the net. I'll take my chances tonight, even if, we know Miles Robinson isn't playing, but even if Michael Parkhurst is out. And that's going to be very interesting, by the way. I think there's going to be a pretty heavy discussion up in Marietta, if it hasn't happened already, about do we stay in the 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, whatever you want to call it, 4-man back line? And do we slot in Parkhurst for Pogba? Or do we try this again, what we did on Thursday night? I think that's a huge question, probably my biggest question coming into the match. But I feel like either way, with 6 days rest, that group can get another clean sheet if they're pressed upon.
They can. It's a very different kind of test tonight. And that's my biggest question coming in is how you deal with a Toronto squad that will use Alejandro Pozuelo as a number 9, but in no way a traditional kind of number 9. Not the number 9 that this team saw, in the last game with Sergio Santos. Not the one that they saw with 2 forwards up top in Bunbury and Bow in the Revolution matches. Pozuelo is going to drift out wide. He's going to drop deep into the midfield. The communication between whatever the back line, whatever the center back group is, if it's 2, if it's 3, whoever they are, and the defensive midfield, they have to make sure that Alejandro Pozuelo is dealt with at all times, because he can have the night that Rui Diaz, that Ladero had last night. He's that kind of player.
And I wonder, because of that, if you would be tempted to go with both Lorenowitz and Remedi in starting roles tonight.
You could. You're going to have to, if you do that, you're going to have to sacrifice somewhere. And that's what, we'll get into it a lot on the whiteboard on stoppage time this afternoon, but you're going to have to make a tough decision tactically any which direction you go, and you're going to leave a good player out of the 11, because that's where Atlanta United is right now. They have more starting level players than any team in this league, in my opinion. And you're going to have to leave someone out if you want to get Remedi in. You're going to have to sacrifice someone if you want to go 3-5-2, Okay, that's going to take someone out of it. If you want to play 4-3-3, that's going to take someone out of it. It's not an easy decision, and it's not an obvious decision. And as good as Frank de Boer has been this season in making these decisions, he's tested again tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's a test for Greg Vanny, too, a little bit. I think it's a little more straightforward for him on the road. I think it's a little more – Omar Gonzalez would be the X factor to me. It's someone who has not started yet for them in the playoffs, but someone that supposedly is 90 minutes or better match fit. I don't believe at all that Josie Altidore is going to play tonight. I would eat my hat if that happened. You don't have an MRI. Well, first of all, you don't not train and then have an MRI and then fly separately from the team down to Atlanta with the intention of playing tonight. I don't believe that for a second. I think that's total gamesmanship. I don't think Altidore would play. If he did play, it'd be as a late sub, but I don't even see that.
That's the only spot that I could see him factoring in.
I don't even see that. I just call I hope I can say this on the radio. I call total BS on Josie Altidore play.
You got it.
Total BS. There is no way that he's not going to travel with the team, not train, and then get an MRI 24 hours before the match and then fly down to Atlanta and play. I don't believe that for a second.
KFC Online wants to know, thinking about tonight and the last match, Ilsinho was the man I feared all game, and I let everyone know it from the stands. Tonight, I think a comparable boogeyman is De Leon. Thoughts? Hashtag Wall Pass Wednesday.
Good shout. Very good shout. For me, it's Pozuelo because he's their best player, and he's going to not necessarily cause chaos, but ask questions. And I'm going to be very curious to see how Atlanta United deals with that. As Jason said, communication is going to be very, very important. But Pozuelo is a best 11 player in this league who has scored goals against you. To me, that's it. De Leon's a great shout. Look, Toronto's got a lot of players with a history against Atlanta United. Osorio, Mavinga. You could go up and down the list. Michael Bradley has had good games against Atlanta United. This could be his final game with TFC if they don't win tonight. So where is he going to be mentally and emotionally? I don't think this is a one boogeyman team. I think it's an 11 boogeyman team. I'd put Quentin Westberg on there too. I mean, he's been great. He's been phenomenal for them in this run of 12 straight league matches where they haven't suffered a loss. So, it'd be hard for me to isolate just De Leon or one player. Pozuelo obviously scares me because he's their best player, but I can't narrow it down to just one.
Endo, for me, is the X factor because he's a guy that I think you forget about when you look at the starting 11 we're likely going to see, with Pozuelo as the 9, with Benezet on one side, with the midfield trio that is so good, with Bradley, Osorio, Delgado, with the outside backs who like to get forward, and Alvaro and Mauro. You can't deal with everybody. And Endo is the one that I think some teams have opted to take their chances with, and he can hurt you. He is a very talented player that is really in a good run of form right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Atlanta United forgot about him in the first minute up in Toronto in June, didn't they? When that team sheet came out, I knew very little about Tabasa Endo, and that was kind of the launching point for where he is right now. That game that he played against Atlanta United and that very, very early goal that they had that he had against them.
Trying to see if anybody else has anything. Okay. Jim Lepp says the match ended as it should, meaning last night. MLS Blue Bloods versus Upstarts. It points to how impressive what Atlanta United did last season. I expect a close match tonight, accepting something extraordinary, but don't expect the prospect of hosting the Cup final to escape the 5 strike.
I think the only extraordinary thing that could happen is if Quentin Westberg, turns into Maxime Crepeau or Zach Steffen or one of those things where it's just, or Tim Howard, like it's just outright thievery by their goalkeeper. That would be the only extraordinary thing I could see maybe happening tonight. I think otherwise it's going to be a tactical, conventional match between two very good managers. It will probably come down to substitutions. I feel like it broke a record. First goal, obviously, very, very vital. Atlanta United scored the first goal in every match they've played since July 12th, except once, and that was up at Yankee Stadium, that disastrous night where they didn't have Joseph Martinez. So, yeah, I tend to agree with the questioner. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. I don't expect a lot of surprises. I expect a good, tough match tonight against a team with a bunch of champions, 12 MLS Cup champions on that roster.
Yeah, I think the surprises can come on the Atlanta side because there's just not that many options for Toronto. And you look at what they've done from a tactical standpoint and from a substitution standpoint over the last 3-4 games. The starting 11, the biggest question is Omar Gonzalez. Does he come back in for Laurent Simon? If he's able to play, I think he does. If he's ready to start, I think that's when that happens. So your substitutions, though, I mean, it's been De Leon for Endo. It's been Mullins for Benazé. It's been Larea coming in for Morrow or Alro or coming in somewhere else and going to 3 in the back and a 5-man back line when you need to with the wing backs dropping. That's really it. But from Atlanta's standpoint, we don't know what shape they're going to be in to start. We don't know what the personnel is going to be necessarily. And then we've been consistently, I think, surprised in good ways by the substitutions and the changes that we've seen in the match. That might be what's needed tonight.
Could be. I mean, you might need that change of pace, especially if the match is ground into a pulp at around the hour mark and there are zeros still up on the board. And that's where someone like Tito Villalba may be able to help you unlock some things. But, I mean, we'll see. So many possibilities, so much intrigue in this match tonight. Who would have had the prop bet, by the way, that Laurent Simon would still be playing and LAFC would be out?
That's a good one. Did not have that one.
I don't think anybody would have had that one. Man.
No,
I mean,
that's more than a plus 1,600 on the board for having Gustav Svensson scoring.
It's kind of a technicality because Toronto hasn't played yet. But I would not have predicted that in August. You know, I'm telling you, here's another thing too, guys. Recent form does matter. Recent form really does matter. And it's not like LAFC was bad going down the stretch, but they were 3-2-5 since Labor Day. 3-2-5. Atlanta United's a little bit better than that. Toronto's a lot better than that since Labor Day. Seattle's been a little bit better than that, but there were red flags. There were warning signs about LAFC that I think a lot of people pushing the greatest team ever narrative just chose to ignore, and they'd point to, well, you know, Velo isn't playing, or they're hurt, or they're tired, or my favorite, they're bored. That's always my favorite. You hear that all the time in the NBA. Well, you know, the Warriors are just bored. And then they go out and they get crushed by Toronto in the NBA Finals. There were plenty of red flags about LAFC that even surfaced in the Trafico the other night that were just willfully ignored. And it's not like I'm rooting against LAFC. I like them. I like them a lot. They're very fun to watch. I like Bob Bradley. Vela's going to be the MVP this year, and he should be. He had a fantastic year. What they did was great for the league. Their supporters are awesome. I think there's a lot of mutual respect between the Atlanta supporters and the LAFC supporters. Their comm staff was amazing when we were out there in July. Great stadium, one of the best in the league. Like, there's so many things I love about LAFC. I wasn't rooting against them. But you know, I think there was this rush to push this narrative about them being the greatest team ever. And a lot of people are eating crow this morning. And it's not just our friends in New York. I mean, you've seen it elsewhere, too. It's just very, very interesting. And this is why you play the games. And honestly, if I'm Toronto, I'm probably looking at what happened out there last night. And now I have a little bit of confidence going into tonight because it does tell you that anything can happen.
Ike Man says that set pieces still scare him more than any one player. So his boogeyman is Simon on a set piece.
Yeah, I'm less worried about Simon than I would be against
Omar Gonzalez.
Omar Gonzalez, I'm even thinking back to that Philadelphia game. I mean, Philly had a couple players 6'2" or taller. This is where not having Miles Robinson scares you a little bit because Miles is kind of the neutralizer on set pieces because of his height. But I invite Toronto to keep sending corners to the front post and let Joseph head that out of danger 100 times out of 100. You did see a free kick goal last night for LAFC. The free kicks might be a little bit trickier than the corners tonight, but you've just got to be careful to try to avoid giving those up. You've got Alan Kelly, a referee that doesn't call a lot of fouls, and if he refs the match in the same way that Jair Marufo did last night, and apparently I've been mispronouncing that guy's name for years. I did not know that. He on the radio broadcast, he was being called Jair Marufo last night. I honestly did not know that, so I apologize
I've never
to
heard
him.
anyone else refer to him in that name.
Oh, well, then maybe who knows? And we'll have to ask him the next time we get to see him, which will probably be never. They don't usually let the broadcasters speak to the referees for obvious reasons. But if Kelly refs the game the same way it was called last night, and I think he probably will, fouls will be very, very minimal. As well they should, as long as the line is consistent, because you want the players to be able to determine the outcome.
Yeah, when you compare the two, Kelly calls about 2 more fouls a game, but everything else is pretty similar. They don't throw a lot of cards. They have no fear in calling a penalty when they need to, but they let the players decide the game, and that's the kind of referees you want at this time of year, I think.
And he's a good ref. He's had a tough year. He's a good ref.
He had a bad couple weeks there that surprised me.
I am shocked beyond belief they gave him this game, because he had the Atlanta-Toronto match in June that ended so controversially. Like, I'm flabbergasted that they gave him a reverse fixture. It's not that he isn't a good ref. It's not even that he may or may not have gotten things incorrect in that match. There was just so much controversy and chaos at the end of that match, and he was such a big part of it. I cannot believe they gave him this one. If they would have put Marufo on tonight and Kelly on last night, it would have made a lot more sense. I'm flabbergasted. And I don't think it'll have any impact on the outcome, but I'm just beside myself surprised that they gave him this fixture.
One question from Alex Krupp. He says, if Toronto keeps their false 9, it seems like our 6 is going to have a good game to track and condense the space. Would you play Jeff or Remedi there? And also, his fiancée wants to know if Joseph ever found his other dog.
I don't know about the dog, and I'm on the record saying I think you play both Jeff and Eric tonight because of that concern. And if that means you have to sacrifice, more of an attack-oriented midfielder, or if you maybe even go back to 3 in the back, I'm fine with it.
I don't think you have to put Remedi in to sacrifice the rest, but I do think it's Jeff. I think it's Jeff with whatever your back line is, and they have to be on the same page. And that's going to be one of the big decisions, is how you deal with that and what that does to your lineup, because Frank de Boer and the players around this team have been very clear that it's shifted this season to a team that pays very close attention to what the opposition does and picks its tactics and its lineup based off the opposition, not just wanting to impose its style on the opposition.
And by the way, I'll have to look it up. I really don't think, off the top of my head, that you've had Lorenowitz and Remedi both start the same match in the midfield this year. There might have been a match where Lorenowitz was a center back and Remedi was in the midfield. But as far as them both starting in the midfield, I'm not sure if that's happened this year. You could, remember, you could play Lorenowitz at center back tonight.
Also possible.
We've kind of forgotten about that as an option, but that is something they could do as well.
Also possible. It's going to be interesting. We'll be excited to get that lineup when we have it on the AT&T countdown to kickoff. But we got stoppage time before that. We've got a long day ahead of us, Mike.
Yeah, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Stoppage time at 2 o'clock on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page. Radio coverage starts at 7 o'clock tonight on 92.9 The Game. Radio.com, Sirius XM 157 in the Atlanta United app. We'll do a full 1 hour full-time report, and we'll see where we are at the end of the night. It's going to be a really, really good night, or it's going to be a very, very disappointing night, but hopefully a very good night.
Yeah, here's to hoping. See you in a little bit, Mike.
Okay, guys.
We're going to take a quick break, get Doug Robertson on the line, get the takes from the AJC right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. October 30th. Eastern Conference Final tonight at the Benz, Atlanta, Toronto. This man will be there covering it for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Doug Robertson. How's it going, Doug?
Oh, it's fine. I hope y'all are dry today.
Yes.
For the moment.
For the moment, yes. It's a busy, long day of getting ready for this tonight. What'd you think about last night? Seattle going into Los Angeles and pulling the upset.
It's funny. One of my boys asked me if I thought Seattle could win, and I said, yeah. We were talking about it yesterday while we were waiting on Atlanta United training too. We thought that it was just going to take Seattle kind of weathering the first 20 minutes, and then if they could get to around 60 with a game tied or even a lead, LAFC would panic because it's not a situation they've been in before, and they don't have a good history in these type of games. And the script played out a little bit differently, but LAFC to me just looked really poor. They didn't look aggressive. Carlos Vela, as he has a little bit of a history of doing, kind of disappeared in a big game for them. He's played well in big games for LAFC, but with Mexico and other clubs he hasn't.
Be careful, Doug. Bob might get a little upset.
And so, I thought Seattle did a great job, and LAFC maybe bought into this crap about it being the greatest team in MLS history a little too soon.
What did you think about how Jerry Marufo called the match last night? Because he's been a talking point in a couple of different directions, but what did you think about Marufo and his approach?
Well, I tweeted last night that this may be a little bit of officiating karma because LAFC has gotten a ton of questionable calls go its way this season, including on the first goal. Carlos Vela wasn't touched on that tackle. It was a pure dive after he fell down spinning, but they got the free kick and got a goal out of it. And so I thought that was a little bit of officiating karma. But he called it the same way for both teams. He let them play. And if Atlanta United gets that kind of stuff tonight, I think they win this game fairly easily. If it becomes ticky-tacky fouls and there's a lot of free kicks and things, I think it could be a problem.
What worries you about Toronto as they come in tonight?
Just Pizzuelo. If Atlanta United can keep Pizzuelo in front of them, an eye on him the whole time, that's the only thing that worries me. I mean, I like Delgado. I like Osorio in their midfield. I think they do most of the work. But Pizzuelo is really the only guy that truly scares me. I mean, Endo had a decent game against Atlanta United in Toronto, but that was a game that was one of those games that when I referenced last week on Twitter that I think Frank sometimes overthinks the lineup. If y'all remember that game, he had Parkhurst as a right fullback and Pitti as a right midfielder. And that was just going to be a recipe for disaster because Parkhurst does not have the speed to be a fullback. And we all know Pitti is not going to work consistently hard on defense, especially way out there on the flank. During the regular season, he didn't. He did it last week very well. And, Toronto gave Atlanta United all sorts of fits. And you're not going to see that lineup in formation tonight.
So then technically is Pozuelo your boogeyman for Toronto? Because we had somebody ask in the previous segment who their boogeyman was, and they came up with De Leon. We've had Endo. Pozuelo, I know, is in your spot shadow, but would he qualify as your boogeyman tonight for Toronto FC?
I guess it depends on how you define a boogeyman.
Yeah.
A boogeyman to me is somebody you're not expecting, and I'm fully expecting Pozuelo to have an impact. So by my definition of a boogeyman, I think Osorio could be trouble for Atlanta United. I like his work ethic. But again, if they can just keep Pozuelo in front of them, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I look at a guy like Tsubasa Endo. I think Nick De Leon is one that we've had some listeners mention. Somebody like that can pop up unexpectedly because you kind of know who the focal points are for Toronto. It's been a weird year for Toronto. I mean, last year was a very strange year that started with the CONCACAF Champions League run all the way to the final. You fall in penalties. You have injury upon injury upon injury in the back. This year gets even weirder with Giovinco and that drama at the beginning of training camp, and then Victor Vasquez leaving as well. And it took most of the year to truly replace those guys. But Pozuelo came in the first window. Benazet, who's been starting as of late. Erickson Gallardo, who has taken a little bit longer to get going. But it's been a building year for Toronto, and I feel like they're starting to really connect all of the dots at this point. And Atlanta's kind of had that story too. It's two teams that have gotten better as the year's gone on tonight.
Toronto has gotten better as the year went on. Atlanta United really struggled in September, I thought, when they had everything in front of them and they just kept dropping points left and right. But I think that was a lot about just fatigue and the injuries and fatigue related to those injuries than anything else. I think that 2-week break in between the finale and the first game of the playoffs really did the team a lot of good. And for the first time in a long, long time, Frank could actually drill tactics with a large majority of the players, which they haven't really been able to do going back to January. So I think that was a huge, huge bonus for Atlanta United in particular because of their want to switch formations.
We saw it on, I think it was Justin Meram's Instagram a couple of days ago, and it was emphasized again yesterday that Michael Parkhurst is back out in training in some form or fashion. And aside from whether or not we see him in the 18 tonight, Doug, just what has it been like from, I guess, an emotional standpoint from when you've been up there at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground, for the other guys to see Cap out there training for a match like this? What has that visual been like for everybody?
I don't really know. I mean, I think it's been uplifting. We only see the first 15 minutes when they're out there just doing warm-ups and stuff like that for the most part. It's good to see him. I don't think you'll see him play tonight. I don't think you can put him out there and risk having to use a sub if he has to make a shoulder tackle or if he gets knocked down and risks injury. But I think from a morale point of view, it's got to be great because, he's a living representation that this could be your last game, because this could be every game from now on could be his last game. And so you got to give it your all and you got to play hard if you want to win.
So we've covered the focal points for Toronto. We've covered who the X factor could be for Toronto. Who do you think the most important player is coming in for Atlanta tonight to get the result, and who do you think could be the biggest surprise?
Joseph is the focal point for Atlanta United. If he can get going early, Mavinga has the speed to keep up with Joseph, but nobody else on that back line does, especially Gonzalez, if he plays. So Joseph is the obvious focal point for me. And then the guy that feeds Joseph, Julian Gressel. There was a stretch in August and September, and Toronto, I think, was one of the teams that did this, that teams were not giving Gressel any space. If he got the ball, somebody was on top of him immediately. But then New England and Philadelphia kind of backed off of that philosophy, which worked pretty well. And Gressel didn't get hardly any assists in that period. So I'm curious to see how Toronto attacks him tonight.
I think a big part of the reason why is Ezequiel Barco's emergence back healthy and what he does to a team, both with his dribbling and moving a defense around. It takes that focus that at times they could commit to Julian Gressel. And Gressel's not the same type of player as a Barco or a Pitti in terms of winning 1v1 dribbling battles. That's not his game. You want to get him in space to where he can hit that pass and connect with Joseph like he's done 20 times in his career here. But Barco and Pitti both, you have to account for them. And just like they talked about on the broadcast last night, you get to a point where you have to pick your poison a little bit for Atlanta. And Barco and Pitti on the dribble just grab so much of your attention, it creates the space for Gressel to do what he does best.
Yeah, going back to the officiating question that I think John asked.
Yeah.
If they officiate the game tonight like they did last night, people have got to talk to Pitti about staying on your feet. Do not go to ground because you're not going to get the call and it's going to result in a turnover. I thought Pitti did a much better job fighting through tackles in the last game than he did during the regular season. Barco, the same thing. So I think that's important too.
I think they've understood the postseason mentality. It's different. Games get called a little different because of their experiences in Sudamericana and Libertadores. I think they get it where they're at right now, hopefully, because it's going to be a factor tonight.
Definitely, yeah.
So when you look at, and we haven't necessarily talked about last night a great deal, but let me get into LAFC for a second. How would you judge them in the pantheon of MLS when it comes to looking at greatest teams of all time, greatest single seasons of all time? Where do you gauge what LAFC did, and how do you think they should be judged?
Oh, well, I tweeted last night and again this morning, I think LAFC are a great team. But by no means can you call them the greatest team because they didn't win anything. And all this stuff about redefining MLS, the same thing was said about Atlanta United last year, even about Red Bulls a little bit last year, about Toronto the year before that. You can't keep redefining annually. That doesn't make any sense at all. So I think they were, a fantastic team. I love their stadium. I love the environment in their stadium. But when it came to winning games of importance in tournaments, they fell short. You just can't be considered the greatest team in league history if you don't really you've only have one trophy. So that's my take on that.
All right, let's get into
now,
the predictions.
But the thing is, to me, if Atlanta United beats Toronto and then wins the MLS Cup again, I think they have to be considered one of the greatest teams in MLS history for what they've accomplished the previous two seasons.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, we went through it at the top of the show. Right now, they are in rarefied air with winning 3 trophies in a 2-year span. And people will argue Campeones Cup, and that's fine. But 3 trophies in 2 years. Atlanta 2018-2019, Toronto 2017, and you can throw 2016 or 2018 with a bonus Canadian championship into it. LA Galaxy 2001-2002, they won an MLS Cup, a Supporter Shield in 2002, an Open Cup in 2001, and take your pick whichever 2 years you want of the first 4 years of the league with DC United because they won 2 trophies each year from 96 through 99. That's it. That's it. That's your list. It's not very long. So you get a fourth one if you get there, and you got to get through 2 tough matchups to do it. You got to beat the last 2 MLS Cup winners before you won it last year. Yeah, I think you've earned that conversation. I think you have to be in it, and we'll see what happens with that ongoing narrative that will continue to percolate. But let's get into predictions tonight. It's Toronto coming to town. If you haven't voted yet out there listening, go to jbailey86 on the Twitters. Vote in the Bailey Daily poll presented by Appolinsky and Associates. Your champion for the season was Doug Robertson, and he's got the trophy probably right in front of him, right?
It is right in front of me. And I have a question for y'all after we do predictions if we have a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Let's knock the predictions out. John, why don't you kick us off?
Even though they will not be worn this evening because of weather conditions, we're going to go with the Velvet Driving Slipper Lock of the Week, 2-1 in normal time.
Even ask. I don't even know why I asked the question. I should have just said it because I knew this was going to be a 2-1 game. Give me a little description.
Let's see. It's going to be a very physical 20 minutes, and it's going to be goalless. I think that Atlanta gets one probably in the 35th to 40th. They carry that momentum to the half. I think it's Joseph on a pass from Pity. I think it happens again, say 5 minutes into the second half, making it 2-0, and then we'll go set piece to make it 2-1, say in the 80th to 85th, and it's a very anxious ending, but Atlanta United comes out on top.
Okay. Doug, what about you? What are you thinking?
My Black Velvet Driving Slipper Lock of the Week is Atlanta United 2-0 over Toronto.
And what Halloween candy are you putting on that result? Are you putting the good stuff on it, or are you putting like Now and Laters or something that you don't like so much?
No, I'll put Reese's Peanut Butter Cups on it, baby.
Wow.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm going all in. I'm not any kind of wishy-washy goober like somebody else on your show. I'm going all in.
That's what I'm talking about. I think it's going to be a tough one tonight. I think Atlanta's going to find a way, but I think it's going to be a goal in the final 15 minutes to win 1-0. I really think Toronto's going to frustrate, sit deep, make it difficult, try to just stretch this out at zeros as long as possible. And I just don't think they can get a clean sheet with Joseph staring him down. I think Joseph finds a way. I think it's Barco who sets it up, and I'm going to go 1-0 Atlanta with a goal in the final 15. I think it's going to be a big night, a fun night, but, man, a stressful night because Toronto can come in and I think do a lot of what Seattle did yesterday. And I think the difference is that Atlanta has multiple ways they can hurt you. And I think LAFC, being so one-dimensional in the way that they play, I don't think they had the alternatives to that. And I think Atlanta does and will find it and make it happen. So I'm going 1-0, Doug 2-0, 2-1 from John. Let us know what you're thinking out there on Twitter. And Doug has a question to finish us off.
What do y'all think about the possibility of an NWSL franchise in Atlanta? Do you think it would be successful, or do you think that it would be kind of the flashy toy that eventually would just kind of everyone would lose interest in? Which, to be fair, has kind of been the history of the league and franchises in the country, and not a representation, in my opinion.
Go ahead, John.
I think that it will have. I think this time around it'll have staying power, and I think that with when you get to that point, even though we know that Atlanta United have had thoughts about it, I think that with what you've seen with how AMB has brought Atlanta United online, I think they'll take those same steps if that day comes when an NWSL franchise comes. And I think that you're going to see the same kind of investment, the same kind of grassroots, the same kind of exposure. And as we've seen with AMB, they don't do anything, half-cocked. They go in, they do their research, they understand what they're looking at, they understand how they're going to approach it, and the dossier is probably going to be something akin to Tata's notebook. It'll be 2 inches thick by the time they do something, but I think that they'll do their due diligence. I think they'll put their care into it if it comes to that point, and they'll look at it, and I think it'll be something that'll stay because of how the sport has grown here in the Southeast.
I think the NWSL's turned the corner. I feel like 2019 was the jump-off point that it needed, because I agree with you. In the past, it's felt like a shiny new object, and then it didn't, whether it was the league or the teams specifically, and the Atlanta teams are part of this conversation in the past, they didn't do enough to sustain it. The first version of the beat did a really good job, probably better than anyone else in the first women's professional league, but the rest of the league folded. There's nowhere for them to play. The second beat didn't have the same type of resources. That league had far more issues from day one than the NWSL has now. I do think there's still things that the league has to improve upon. I think the awareness, the accessibility has to continue to increase, but they're turning the corner there. And I think what John said specifically about the commitment, and it's not even just a financial commitment, but the commitment to operating a first-class soccer club would be very different here. And I think the clubs that you're seeing in the NWSL that are successful and sustainable are the ones that are doing that. And I think if Portland can do what they've done with their fan base that has taken to the women's game and it being more than just a nice thing to go do on an afternoon, but people passionately caring about it, that's the trick. It has to be treated like a professional sport. It can't be treated as a charity. It can't be treated as you should feel obligated to come out. It has to be, this is a great product. You want to be here because this is good soccer. And I think the level of the game is there, and I think the level of the fan base is there too. I think the level of the soccer community in this region is there now too, because it's not what it was in 2001 for the first beat. It's not what it was in the late 2000s for the second beat. I think you have a savvier soccer base now in Atlanta that will support it and get behind it, and I think it can even open up some doors to new fans to be involved in everything that the club's doing, and I think a lot of the club's existing fans will support it in a big way. I think it can be really successful.
Here's my take on the whole thing. I have significant worries about the future of the NWSL, only because so many clubs in Europe are now starting women's teams, and their infrastructures are already there and are already going to be better than most teams, not Atlanta United, but most teams in MLS who have affiliates in the NWSL. So I think that the best players in the United States are eventually going to move over to Europe, which is going to affect the quality of the NWSL. When you look at how long it took Arthur Blank to decide to pull the trigger on an MLS franchise, I find it interesting that an NWSL franchise could start here as early as 2021, especially when they really don't have a place to play or offices or other infrastructure that could be built in the next 2 years, but it would take a massive and quick amount of work. And anytime you try to do something fast, it gets significantly more expensive. And all that on top in a league in which I got to think, even though the salary caps aren't very much, there's the franchises are still not making money. I mean, there's most of the franchises in MLS allegedly still aren't making money. So I'm a little bit pessimistic that Atlanta United could have an NWSL franchise as early as 2021.
We'll see. There are a lot of questions on the NWSL side, and this is a massive offseason for them. If they do the things that I think they need to do because of growing the league and the challenges internationally, I mean, that's dead on, as that's picked up in a way that they haven't had to deal with in the past. If they do the things that they are saying they're going to do and do the things that it feels like they are heading towards, I think they'll be in a better position to ride it out. But maybe, and if you go back to what Grant Wall said, maybe that's part of the waiting game, is Atlanta wants to wait and see, like, okay, what is it going to look like? Are these things going to be taken care of the right way? If so, then all right, we can come in and be part of it and I think elevate it. And if they're not set up the right way, I think you continue to wait. And that's probably where things are at the moment.
So, all right, guys, I will see you tonight.
All right, we will see you tonight
All right,
at the
be good,
Benz.
dude.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
We're going to take our final break and come back and wrap everything up on Twitter because I know there's a bunch. We will try to get as many as we can before we wrap up for the day. We'll be right back after this.
The ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Final segment, Soccer Down here, October 30th. Getting ready to head to the Benz, Atlanta and Toronto. Kickoff just after 8 o'clock. It's not 8:30. It's not 8:45. It's not whatever time you want to say. It is
8:18.
just after 8 o'clock. No, it's not 8:18. I got that one right, by the way, though.
Yes, you did.
You know, it happens from time to time. Just after 8 o'clock. Pregame starts at 7 o'clock for us on 92.9 The Game. You can also get into the building early when the doors open and head to the AT&T Perch and yell at Dukes and Bell, who will be doing their show live from the Perch this afternoon. Big day in Atlanta soccer with the Eastern Conference Final, the opportunity with a win for the Five Stripes to host MLS Cup in back-to-back years and an opportunity to continue what's been a pretty special year. Can find another level of special if they get through tonight. What do we have left on the Twitters?
All right. Brian Kinchlow, anybody notice the giant gaps of empty premium corporate seats in the lower section of BOC last night? Shameful, can't stand the good seats going unused.
Happens everywhere. Happens in Atlanta, happens everywhere. It's just part of the deal with sports at this point. Corporate seats, corporate money is a big part of the success of professional sports, and sometimes those seats don't get used. It is the nature of the beast at this point, so no, I'm not going to throw stones about it. The one thing I will say about the fans last night, I thought the noise that the LAFC supporters were making all night long was amazing. I thought it sounded great on TV. That doesn't make up for throwing things on the field at the Seattle Sounders. That's an embarrassment, and the league needs to come down on it very, very hard, or it's going to get out of control, because this is back-to-back years in postseason losses where you've had some ugly moments. Don't sweep it under the rug. Come down hard on it. That is completely and utterly unacceptable when you've got Nuhu volleying beers that are being thrown from the upper level, it looked like, at Seattle players as they're celebrating. It's not cool. The noise and the atmosphere at that stadium is amazing, and they are better fans than the idiots who throw things on the field. You've got to take care of those idiots or it's going to get out of hand.
And that was part of Katie Weaver's PSA for the day, reminding Atlanta United fans not to throw things tonight.
Don't do it or you're an idiot. Like, it's that
Yes.
simple. You want to throw something on the field at professional athletes, you're an idiot. Don't be an idiot.
Heath Bradley. So the MLS CONCACAF Champions League reps are Atlanta United, LAFC, NYCFC, and Seattle from the U.S. no matter what, and Montreal for Canada, ?
Yeah, that's it. It's been that way for a little while because Toronto doesn't qualify through MLS. So once you got to, I think it was the Final Four, it was already decided that's what it would be.
Let's see. Eichmann and Eric Englert had thoughts on MLS Digital. Eichmann says, yes, I know there's a difference. He says he'll take MLS Digital media guys over D'Orlando Ledbetter all day. Yes, I know there's a difference between a league source and a team beat writer, especially from a different league. I just don't like the guy. I wanted to complain, and then he shrugged his shoulders about it.
That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah. Then Eric
yes.
Englert's, yeah. And so Eric Englert says, the spicy takes don't bother me that much in principle, but it's the only narrative that's pushed by MLS Digital. If you want to do a takes podcast, do ETR After Dark, but it would be refreshing to see some analysts devoid of commentary from the league.
Yeah, that's the thing is I feel like you're missing all the elements of it. And I don't know, maybe I'm looking at it in a weird way, but I've always felt like people zero in on embrace debate about ESPN and yell and scream, and then they say, well, it's driving ratings, and it is. And all those things are true, but the reason why they can do it and the reason why it works is they have SportsCenter. They have other programs that dig deeper into individual sports and present it in a way that, yes, is entertaining, but also is informative and also analyzes what's going on. You can't just have the takes. You can't just have that. You're just having the seasoning and you're not having the steak. That's stupid. Like, you need the guts of this to be correct, because I think when you don't, this is all that comes out of it. And the other thing too about it, and it's not just takes and narratives and all of that. It's just that so often it becomes about prodding fan bases. And that's the absolute wrong way to build an audience. I think the fact that things have gotten so negative at times with the way information is presented is a problem just in general, but you're not going to grow the league by consistently, and even last night in a game that had nothing to do with Atlanta United, presenting a poll and saying, oh, I don't want to make Atlanta United fans angry, blah, blah. Like, stop talking about Atlanta United fans and stop trying to, like, poke them. Just present the news and information and analysis and conversation about the league, because when you do that, you are looking down on a large fan base. And it's happened to Seattle, it's happened to Toronto, it's happened to every team in the league. That should not be the message coming from the league's media. It should be about growing the league and celebrating the league. And again, if you want to have the Takes podcast and get spicy and get into all that, cool. But that doesn't work if you don't have the meat to go with it of actually talking about what's going on the field. I thought Dax McCarty was great last night on the post-game and the pre-game commentary. He gave you the important stuff. I think Kalen Carr does a really good job of that. But I think so often it becomes about being spicy, and that's just not the main event. That's not the top draw. That's second. Give me the meat and potatoes first.
El Mataflow actually says that there is actually something called the curse of the super leader, the first place seed in Liga MX, due to the first place team often exiting the playoffs in the first 2 months, where Tafka said to no longer tempt the fates and just talk about tonight.
I'm completely and utterly confused.
What?
That didn't make any, like, okay. Yes, I know about the curse of the super leader, like, definitely, but where did that come from? Where?
No, that was just an independent thought that El Mataflow had.
Okay. All right. LAFC and the Red Bulls are the super leader, and they did not get through the postseason for very, very different reasons. I think you're talking about two completely different situations with the two, but Toronto did in 17. So I'll throw that to the side a little bit. I think the other thing you have to factor in when you look at like top seeds is what we talked about with NYC, where they sat out longer. Toronto came in after a win. They were feeling good about themselves, and they went to Citi Field and took care of business against a team that looked sloppy because they hadn't played. That plays into it here as well, and that doesn't play into it in Mexico. It's an interesting situation because of how difficult a postseason is. I think the difficulty has increased with the new format, and I think it's created more situations where over the long term you will see upsets. We haven't seen as many this time as I thought we would, but I think if you stick with this format over 5 years, you will see more upsets than you have in the past.
Percy Herrera, shout out to La Pulga for a spectacular performance last night. He also says he felt like Seattle dug in and gave 200%. Will they have enough in the tank to play one more game? Looking at how late the Morris sub came, can either team expose his sluggishness after the 40th?
Do you know who La Pulga is?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. He's talking about Raul Ruidiaz. The Peruvian flag gives that away.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we got to make sure people understand the tweets, because sometimes people get into their own conversations on Twitter. So when we just read a tweet and just drop it out there, it's like throwing a classical book into the library and nobody knows what's going on here and everybody's trying to figure it out when they're talking about Dr. Seuss. So, yeah, he was unbelievable. And I mentioned it on Twitter. I thought the whole idea of Joseph playing with a knife between his teeth, Raul Ruidiaz showed you what that looks like last night. And you didn't get that from LAFC. You just didn't. I was surprised that Seattle was able to drop as deep as they did, as early as they did, and not get punished for it. But that third goal really killed it off. And that's, I guess, the most surprising thing for me is that was the goal that LAFC had no response to. Like, they just didn't ever look desperate. I mean, in any way. In a childish way with committing bad fouls, like, there was no response to going down 2 goals at home and your season drifting away. I do think from what Percy said about gas in the tank, they've got plenty of time. You're talking about November 10th, so it won't have an effect. It won't have an effect at all.
Let's see. Jorge B. has a question. PT did not play against New England due to tactical reasons. Frank de Boer refers to as risky or defensive liability. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was Atuesta a defensive liability for LAFC last night?
Not completely different situations. Atuesta can be the holding midfielder in the way LAFC plays when they dominate the game. And more often than not this season, they dominated the game. Last night, they dominated the game in a lot of ways, but the one moment where you needed him to stick somebody and punt them off the field, he didn't do it. The trade-off over the whole year has been 100% worth it. Pitty's conversation's different because you're worried not just about the defensive side, and I will continue to stand on the island about this one, and that's fine. I think the defensive side is such an overrated element of Pity Martinez and his game, and even in this decision, because it wasn't the first thing Frank talked about. What Frank talked about was turning the ball over in bad situations. And against a New England team that wants to get direct and not try to play through any build-up play and just the ball turns over, boom, we're going over the top in a 1v1, that's a different situation. You can't be as risky against a team like that. It's not about the defensive side as much, but that's the way I look at it. In a game like that, the other part of it is New England will play more direct. You will be looking for a second ball. That's not Pitty's game exactly. It wasn't the greatest fit for him. You get through it. You beat them twice. You come to Philadelphia, who does want to play in a build-up style that is going to press differently. You want a player of Pitty's quality on the field. He delivered. He's delivered a lot in the last 5 times he has played. He's averaging over 3 created chances per game in his last 5. He's been heavily influential for this team when he's been on the field. New England, it wasn't the greatest situation, and you won. Tonight, I think he'll be influential, and I think he'll be very important. And I don't think his defense will be the first thing we talk about, because it shouldn't be.
For Card Ahmed, I'm glad Seattle showed Atlanta United what can happen if you don't match intensity for this game. I'm not worried about it, but I think the reminder to the players cannot hurt. Toronto will bring it tonight, and hashtag we ready.
Yeah, 100%. You have to match the opponent's intensity, and everything that Joseph said about the postseason and kicking people and all of that, he's 100% right. Because if you don't come out with that mentality, you get knocked out. And we saw it with LAFC.
And then Chris Hutchison, last in the queue. And there are folks on the timeline discussing an apparent story that came out about Chattanooga Red Wolves, and I don't have enough to say anything about it, but that's just a separate conversation over there. But Chris Hutchison, last in the queue today. Friends don't let friends be idiots.
That's true. I'm going to assume it's about throwing things on the field.
Yes, it is about throwing things on.
Yes. So don't be an idiot. And if you see people throw something on the field, get them out of there. Because that's not what needs to be the story anywhere in this league. And it's stupid and it's dangerous and it should not be happening in this league. Don't do that nonsense. LAFC fans are too good for that. And the overwhelming majority of fans are unbelievable in Los Angeles. But you have some idiots who are putting a damper on it. And it's happened more often than it should. So that needs to be addressed. The league can't just overlook it and say, well, they make a lot of noise, so it's okay. We don't want to diminish that. Well, get rid of the idiots, and the other people will make plenty of noise, and it'll be just fine. Anything else on the Twitter? I saw the Chattanooga Red Wolves thing. We will see what we can find out. I saw that pop up on Reddit earlier. I do think you need to be careful with unsubstantiated rumors, and that's what they were referred to as, rumors. There were corrections made. There is a very trying to think of the right word. Contentious is what I'll go with. Soccer scene in Chattanooga with Chattanooga FC and the Chattanooga Red Wolves, and it's been on both sides where there have been lots of things said and done that are very unfortunate, because I do think there can be a place for both, and I think both would be better served to focus on their own business rather than what the other team is doing. There's been just a lot of stuff going on, and I know Chattanooga FC fans will say that that's not fair and whatever. I think Chattanooga FC can be very, very successful, and I don't think it has anything to do with Chattanooga Red Wolves. I think Chattanooga Red Wolves can be successful. I don't think it has anything to do with Chattanooga FC. I think Greenville has shown you that you can have two teams, and it doesn't have to be fighting at all times and doing this. So lots of different things going on. We will see what we can find out. I think what we're learning from the situation in Hartford that Sock Takes has reported about, the situation in Fresno, the situation in Lansing. Lower division soccer is difficult. I can speak to it from a much lower level when you talk about the NPSL, and the margins for error are incredibly, incredibly slim. It's very difficult to do it. And as we said for 2 years when talk started about NPSL teams going pro and new leagues popping up and the NASL's issues and NISA's issues getting started and Philadelphia Fury disappearing before they even played a game, all that type of stuff. It's hard. You can have the best of intentions and still get it wrong. You can make the right decisions and still get it wrong. It's very, very difficult, and I don't think there is anything to be gained from celebrating any business having a problem in the soccer industry. From a big picture standpoint, I hope that the leagues are putting the right things in place to prevent teams from disappearing, because we haven't seen as much of that over the recent years. That's been a good thing in the overall growth of the sport in this country, and not just in Atlanta, but everywhere. You need that. You need teams to survive. You need teams to be sustainable. So whatever level that is, if it is USL Championship, if it is USL League One, if it is NISA, which are all professional, if it is NPSL, if it is USL League Two, if it is UPSL, when teams fold, it's a bad thing. It's a bruise. Luckily, we haven't had as many bruises lately. There's a few right now, I think, with groups that maybe bit off a little more than they could chew. I hope that the ones that are still fighting and still trying to keep it afloat and still have big plans can get to that point, and they've got to grind to get there. Can business be tough sometimes, and salaries get cut and players get cut and front office staff get cut? Yeah, it happens. Welcome to the real world. You know? I mean, it happens in any business. So I don't know if there's a lot to be gained from celebrating it. And I really hope that that's not the case. Because both teams in Chattanooga, if these rumors are true, both teams in Chattanooga have had moments where they have had funding issues and they have had scary points where it was a big concern on if they were going to last. Neither team can be innocent in that regard. So it doesn't do any good to celebrate these situations. Focus on building your business. Focus on building the club that you love and the club that you support, and you're going to be in a better situation. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what gets said. We've been trying to speak with Sean McDaniel for a little while. We like to catch up with Sean, and we like to catch up with all of the lower division teams in the region, and we're not going to stop trying to have a conversation about Chattanooga and what's going on and what's next, and we will continue to do that. And that's where we're at with it, and that's where I think it is. But the negativity that happens in some markets, and Chattanooga is not the only one with multiple teams and negative situations. That's why Greenville has been such a breath of fresh air to me, in that you have two teams at different levels that are doing different things and finding success for each, and it can be that way. It's okay. It doesn't have to be one survives and everything else goes away and we dance on the ashes. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Tonight, here's your timeline for the rest of the day when it comes to content. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. 1:20, I'll be on with Andy and Randy on 92.9 The Game. I'll stick around for the AMA segment, so if you've got questions, throw them at us on Twitter. I'm at Longshoe, TBM929, Randy Mac 81, 92.9 The Game. 2 o'clock, stoppage time on Facebook.com/929 The Game from the 92.9 The Game studios. Be headed down to the Benz, and I'll hop on with Dukes and Bell sometime around 4 o'clock. You can listen on radio.com if you're not able to pull up the radio. And remember, radio.com now, the app, has the rewind feature. So if you don't catch it live, you can rewind to it, listen to it. It's an awesome feature. It was great. I missed the Darren Eales interview yesterday. Rewound to it. Good, easy, quick. So that's all on the radio before the game. Five Stripes Countdown starts at 7 o'clock. AT&T Countdown to kickoff will be around that time as well with your lineup. That's on Atlanta United social media channels. We're going to have Stephen Glass join us again on radio at about 7:20 to talk about the performance from guys who he had a lot late in the season for Atlanta United. Their performance against Philadelphia. We'll also talk a little bit about the club as a whole. We're going to talk about the U17s who've been down in Colombia playing a couple of matches. Talk about that growth. Kickoff will be just after 8. We'll have the full-time report afterwards. We're on SiriusXM FC as well tonight. It's on the radio.com app. It's on the Atlanta United app. All of the stuff. And then tomorrow we'll have Overreaction Thursday. Plus what?
Plus the tailgate show presented by Apolensky and Associates. I will be doing it.
Yes.
So so it'll be like an AMA.
Do you have a time you want to put out there on that?
4:30. Let's say 4:30 is normal a couple of hours before kick. So let's go with 4:30. And weather permitting, it will either be in the Gulch or in some place with a roof.
Stay dry. Keep your voices ready to go. It's going to be a match where I don't think Toronto gets intimidated, But I do think that the voices, the noise, the feeling coming from the supporters tonight can boost Atlanta United and their tired legs and their performance when they need it. So get in there, make that noise, get in there early and support this team for 90 plus, however long it takes, because there's history that can be made, there is a statement that can be made, and there is a title to defend tonight for Atlanta United. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. 9 a.m., Overreaction Thursday, any which way. We'll see what the reactions look like. It's going to be a big one tonight, I think. All the hype about El Tráfico being the biggest game in MLS history, I think quality-wise, last night beat that. I think quality-wise, tonight beats both. I think tonight is a big game feel between two big clubs that have won a lot of things and know what it takes to win them. So Atlanta-Toronto tonight, just after 8 o'clock. It's on FS1 for watching it on TV. It is on Fox Deportes as well. It's a big night, y'all. So get ready for it. Rest up. Keep those voices sharp. And then blow them out tonight at the Benz. We'll be talking to y'all all day long on a variety of platforms. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for chiming in. Great conversation this morning. We'll do it again tomorrow. Mucho plata, y'all.
Mucho plata.